Thanks. Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everybody. Well, even in the presentation, even in Matthew's introduction, there's some updates to what he said. It's incredible to believe that it's been a year since I was here. So, and quite a bit has happened in some ways, and in other ways maybe not so much. But one thing is, this is kind of what we've been doing since we last met. So over the last, I had to think about this because when they said, you know, come and give us an update about your business, I thought, a year, I can't believe that. Well, what have we been doing? So this is our busy time of year. Just to give you a quick view of, because I know there are a couple of new people here, so welcome to that. For some of you who were here last year, this may be a little bit of a repeat or a refresher, but we make premium riding apparel, and the company started out targeting Western equestrian women. And the genesis of the company was that I'm a horse lover and rider, and I had recently purchased a horse for my son. He gave him back to me because he wasn't so into horses. But anyway, so I started riding again, and lo and behold, I thought, what are these people riding in? This is terrible. So I went on this quest of trying to find some really good riding apparel with a Western aesthetic. Fast forward, you know, I searched high and low. I interviewed people throughout the industry, in retail, and just consumers, and I realized there really wasn't anything out there. There had been very few innovations. It was one of the last bastions of athletics where people hadn't really broached it as an as a sport. And yet, you know, these women are, you know, on horses, racing around 3 barrels within 16 seconds, and, you know, running around racetrack. I mean, you know, it's definitely an athletic sport. So, anyway, I apologize if that's I don't think that's mine. So I'm looking at my purse to see if it's ringing. So anyway, I decided to tackle the market myself. I wanted a pair, and I thought other people would want a pair. So that's where we started out. So with that, I was targeting, you know, trying to get to this consumer group. So where do you find them? You find them in horse shows. So this is our busy time of year. Oklahoma is a great place for this, for Western equestrians, because you may or may not know that some of the largest end of year, this is considered October, November, or is really end of year, largest end of the year championship horse shows take place in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And so I am a vendor there, and I've been a vendor there for this will be my 3rd year at the Arabian World Show, which is here in Tulsa. And so this is our busy time of year for that. So last year, after this, you know, we did the horse shows, then there are the holidays. For any consumer business, you know, you're really trying to gear up for the holidays. And I was fundraising. So I was gearing up to do a Kickstarter campaign, which I did. I did that in February of this year. Since then, the Kickstarter was successful, and I'll show you that. This was our Kickstarter campaign, and you guys at 1 Million Cups were great in getting the word out and really helpful in that. It was a 30-day campaign. The goal was $25,000. I raised on Kickstarter, you know, almost 33 and a bit $1,000, and then I raised a little bit of additional capital outside of that around the Kickstarter too. So with that money, what I did was set up my own manufacturing, because what I had learned was manufacturing elsewhere, and I don't mean elsewhere like overseas, which in very early days I tried, and that was a complete disaster. I started manufacturing in Oregon. But even Oregon, when you're really developing a new product yourself, Oregon was too far away. I mean, I would do, you know, overday, you know, I'd try to leave the horse show and fly to Oregon and try to fix a problem with manufacturing. Or a big problem that we had was in grading. And grading is when you take a design and you make it into all the other sizes. So all these things that, you know, I'm an engineer, I think, well, you have one size, you put it in the computer and it spits out all the other sizes. No, it just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I still believe it should, but the industry is, kind of saying, no, that just is not the way that works. So it was too far away. So what I wanted to do was bring everything home. I used the Kickstarter money to do that. So now we're set up. We have a studio. We have a production place. We're at 11th and Lewis. It's not a retail place, but that's what we've got set up there. And we've been in production. We've been we produced all the Kickstarter pants. What I learned through the Kickstarter process, and I wrote a little paper which some of you may or may not have read, but if anybody's interested, I can share that with you about what the Kickstarter did for me, beyond the money. And I would say beyond the money, what the Kickstarter really did for me was give me a really good view into my products. So it's given me a chance, now it's given me a chance to refine my opportunity. Okay, so let me hurry through this. The horse riders were not buying these pants. They were buying some of it. 80% of the people who were buying my products were people who just wanted a lifestyle, for an aesthetic, for that kind of statement rather than function statement. And so I really seized on that. I learned a lot from that. I learned about colors and preferences and everything else. But it gave me a lot of latitude to design new things. So I'll show you, our target market is still largely the same, just not focused on the performance aspect. But here are some of our few styles that we've pivoted into. And now our value proposition is based around a lifestyle statement, function, fashion, comfort, made locally, have a fun shopping experience, and a value versus premium price point. These are English, which I learned that the riders who take them up, it's the English riders who really take them, are on the early adopter place. And we learned that motorcycle people really like these and want to need some wear that's fashionable. We do now skirts, because some of the materials I use are just fantastic, and I've had a ball designing some skirts that are really gorgeous. Tops and skinny pants. So these are stretch, suede, washable suede. So that's really kind of how we pivoted. And we're now, the main difference is that I've gone from really going direct to customers, since we'll still offer, but I've decided to use as distribution going to retailers. So we just started that last month.
All right, great. Questions now. If you have a question, just raise your hand, and either James, right here, our new organizer, or Katie on the other side, Katie, raise your hand, will come and hand you the microphone so you can ask a question.
So on the crowdfunding, could you just talk about how much time was spent preparing for that? Because I've heard it's a major event.
Enormous, enormous amounts. I think the biggest thing on the crowdfunding, and you want to have a good video. The video, that kind of stops people in their tracks, I think. And for us, we really produced a video that, honestly kind of turned into an art piece. In fact, I had to go back and have the people who were helping me say, this is about raising money. It's not, it kind of looked like a piece that the Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce had done at the beginning. So the video is a big thing. I don't think it should be a deal stopper, and I have also seen really pretty lousy videos raise a lot of money. It's just that you have to have one. So that's one thing. I think the biggest thing is that they tell you it's going to take a lot of time, and absolutely it does. Once you start your Kickstarter, you're pretty much 100% 24/7 doing Kickstarter business. But before that, so I've told this story before, so apologies to anybody who's heard it, but I was all ready to launch my Kickstarter. And a friend of mine from, one of my friends from business school's wife had raised $400,000 on Kickstarter the year before. And she emailed me and said, you know, hey, you want to chat before you start your Kickstarter? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So she sent me a 3-page, single-spaced lessons learned from their Kickstarter. And it completely shifted everything I was doing. So I was literally going to launch the next week. I looked at her list. I don't know how long I delayed, but it was probably a couple of months while I did that. And the biggest thing, which is kind of a no-brainer to everyone who's raised, and I've raised money before, but not in this kind of way, was I got all my, I asked for large donors, so people who would be willing to commit $5,000 to $10,000. I got all of those lined up, so I had my $25,000 in the bag if I needed it before I even started the thing. So, and I didn't use much of it. I think I used, you know, because during the Kickstarter you want to do some things like, today we're going to have a matching, you know, so if you contribute to the Kickstarter today, your contribution will be matched, you know, and then you want to make sure that it is matched. So if you raise $2,000 that day, there better be $4,000 in the kitty, you know, a difference the next day. So I had the money in order to do things like that. You know, with $25,000, that kind of thing, I don't think makes as big of a difference as if you're going for, you know, a lot of money. So I would say, you know, $250,000 or more. You know, if you know, those kind of games and things really move the needle. On mine, it wasn't as much about that. I mean, another thing that we had to do was that. Another great thing about the Kickstarter for me was that it opened up a lot of doors. I mean, it allowed me to, that sort of gave me the talking point, I guess I should say, of calling anybody I wanted to call. So I would call all these, you know, big people in industry and, you know, say, hey, I'm doing this Kickstarter, you know. And what that did for me was a lot of things. I mean, one true industry icon called me up and he said, hey, I see what you're doing. Here's what you're doing all wrong. You know, and it was terrible and great at the same time. So in the middle of my Kickstarter, I mean, he said, you know, he said, you know, your products look great, but you're presenting them all wrong. And he was right. And you know, it was something that we had done the photos like a year before the Kickstarter. And there were things about the photos when we did them that really bugged me. But, you know, it's like that ugly thing in your house you walk by every day and you just, you know it's ugly, but you forget about it. And after a while, you don't even think it's ugly anymore until, you know, your mother-in-law walks in and says, what are you doing with this ugly thing again? So it was that kind of thing. And when he said it, when he told me these things, I thought, oh my gosh. So we did an emergency photo shoot during the Kickstarter. So we scrambled around and, you know, did all these things and got them, and then put up new photos. Things like that gave me a lot of impetus during the thing. And that's what moved it. Those kinds of things moved the needle for me and continue to.
So Beverly, I think it's awesome that you listen to other people, the wisdom of others. I mean, you're obviously an expert in your area, but you're still willing to learn and, you know, adapt, which is really critical, obviously, for entrepreneurs. Seems like now you've pivoted from a really sort of niche-oriented product with a real known but smaller, you know, user group to bigger, broader, more competitive. How do you continue to differentiate in this big retail world out there and make sure that when you're competing against everybody in a lot of spaces, you can be competitive?
Yeah, it's a great question because you know, where I was, you're exactly right. It are very niche groups, and even in, you know, in the world of Western equestrianism, there are, all these little groups. Like if you're a barrel racer, you're not a reiner. I mean, these probably don't mean anything to you guys, but to the majority of you anyway. Some of you will probably correct me. But, if you, and never the two shall meet. The good news about that is that, if you find your way into one of those silos, you got it, The bad news is you got to find your way into each one of them. So that's the thing, that was the beauty about being so focused on that. The issue that I found was, and when you start studying it, it's an issue that great brands like Nike and Adidas and Lululemon and, all these brands that were created for function, the early adopters were all fashion people. And I will tell you, I go to these horse shows and, I'll say to people, look, once you ride in these pants, you will never ride in anything else. I'm here living, giving you testimony. But when it's function and it's something like that for them, people are real naysayers. Well, I can't because of this. Well, I don't know because of this. Well, and the beauty of a fashion person, if they come up and they put them on and they like them, they buy them. And they're not price sensitive, and they're, if they've got the money, they'll buy them, so, and you think, wow, there aren't even naysayers. They're going, I look pretty good, I want to buy these things, so yes, it's a much broader market. So the good news is it's a much bigger market. The bad news is, how do you differentiate? And that's where part of what the value proposition thing is trying to do for me is show people that, like, I make these pants. These pants are made with stretch suede. I buy this fabric from France. It's washable. It's like incredible fabric. Well, one of my friends who bought these pants said, hey, I just saw some stretch suede skinny leg pants on Net-a-Porter, however you want to say. And she said, they're Isabelle Moran. Isabelle Moran is a big Parisian designer, right? And I said, yeah, but they're $2,000, I'm sure, She said, no, they weren't expensive. I don't know. So I get on there, and I know, because I buy this fabric from France, and this tannery sells to Isabelle Moran. So this is the exact fabric she's using. And it's a skinny leg pant, and she has a couple little frills on there. But I get on there, and yeah, they're on there for $1,875, I think. So so great. I love that. But I can sell I sold a pair of these to my friend yesterday because she is she gets a discount because she buys a lot of stuff, for $310, which is still a good price point, but it's not $1,900, So, yeah, so I don't know exactly how I started doing this, but you know what? Part of it is that I've now decided that, getting the help of retailers is really what I need, because I'm still, a very small company. And this is one thing I wanted to talk about today to you guys, because, sorry, am I lecturing? Does anybody have a question? Is that, when you're really tiny and you're budget bound and you're trying to get things done, you will make mistakes. Every new company makes mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, please come talk to me after this, because I really want to meet you. If you will make mistakes, and when you're budget bound and tiny, you get through your mistakes by using more time. So I'll recover from mistakes, but it takes me more time because I can't throw money or people at it, so that's that. So anyway, so that's what I've decided, is to get the help of retailers to really get me going on this one.
I'm going to give you my business card because I'd like to know that, like to get that thing you wrote about the Kickstarter. If you could email that to me, get the link or whatever.
I'd be happy to.
Great. I spent the first dozen years of my life wrecking small America Main Street working for Walmart, please forgive me. But I know a little bit about retail, and I just ordered my first pair of Duluth trading $20 underwear, so they'll be here in a day or two. They better pay pretty good for 20 bucks a pair, I'll tell you that. But just going about the price point thing and retail and the quality aspect of it, I mean, you are in almost a micro niche in terms of, I would think, in terms of what your price point is. And you've addressed that some, but you know, just going forward, where do you see yourself, you know, again, moving forward with a real high quality, sort of price sensitive product?
Well, I think it is what it, you know, yeah, I think you make really conscious decisions. I mean, you know, I get a lot of, you know, obviously I get a lot of pushback. Oh, those are expensive. So, I mean, just yesterday, there's a woman who in Bozeman, Montana, she just discovered our Western riding jean. And she's all, you know, she put it on her website. You know, I just discovered these. And she has Big Sky Yoga Retreat, which is, you know, one of these things that couples horseback riding with yoga, right? And they're very high-end retreats. They're great. And she's got this, and she posted on her website saying, I just discovered these. Every single cowgirl yoga person needs to buy these. And immediately, you know, there were a couple of people who came on there and went, they're so expensive, you know, kind of thing. And I sent her a little note and I said, you know, you're getting you're getting a couple of comments about price, but you know, here, actually we only use the finest materials that are available around the world. We have some unique things. And we make these all with love in our studio in Tulsa, and we stay, you know, we'll be here to do any, you know, we will correct any problem. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. Everybody, I get that kind of stuff about my retreat. And, you know, there are plenty of people out there who will, you know, who will not think that these are too expensive. So, it's a tricky business. So, you know, people always say, can you make something less expensive? And I will say, no, not with the fabrics I'm using, I can't. I mean, you know, I'm really, you know, I mean, you always hear these poor me stories. I mean, you know, I really am kind of poor me. But, you know, I make them with, I will not sell anything that I don't want to wear myself. I decided, you know, I want to do something I'm really excited about. I'm not interested in, you know, making this for the masses. I'm interested in making really beautiful, one-of-a-kind things. We have one pant that we buy buckskin from the Choctaw Nation. They tan and dye the hides in the 10,000-year-old Choctaw, you know, ancestral ways. They're unique, they're gorgeous, they're one-of-a-kind things. You know, where else are you going to get those? You know, those are expensive. I mean, because for the leather I get for one pair of pants from them is generally $350, just for the leather. You know, and that's before I've gotten it here and put a stitch into it. So, you know, I don't know. You know, it may, we'll see where we are when I come back next September. I have a question.
How you doing? I think the pants are really cool. My question is, you've heard a few people, and you've also heard feedback from the outside sources of, was it really expensive? However, you've got the high-end brands that people understand are expensive, but they also still shell out the money for them. So how do you go about communicating your value as a brand at that high-end market to where when people see your product, they say, yeah, it is expensive, but I'm willing to spend this kind of money on it?
Well, again, I think, you know, it's hard, and you and I have talked about this, because you know how to do things online. You know, it's hard to do that online. It's hard to do that without letting the people actually feel the stuff, and that's why I try it on. You know, I mean, unless I really knew the brand, I think I'd be reluctant at buying something online that I had never touched or put on my body. You know, I think, especially at those price points. However, people do. I mean, I have people buy them if they find them. But that's why I'm going to retailers. I mean, honestly, and you know, doing it online, you know, is really developing my, I've had people help me online, and it's really hard because this is your brand. That's your, whatever your touch point is with your customer, I treat my brand really carefully, and that's another reason why I'm reluctant to have a, lower price point product, because you can't go low and then go high. You cannot make that shift. You cannot, present yourself as something that's less expensive and then all of a sudden pull out your $2,000 pant and expect people to, think of you in the same way. So, so that's why, these retailers, if they're selling things in that price point in their shops, then people don't balk. And I learned was it last summer? No, it was probably the summer before. It wasn't just the summer we had, but the summer before that. We went on my son and I went on a tour to pants. We drove the pants around the West and, showed them at different retailers. We did 3,800 miles in 14 days or something, and showed them all over the West. And I learned pretty quickly then what kind of shops would and would not work with these pants. So, if you have a nice boutique, a really upscale boutique, but the only pants you're selling in there are, jeans, and you may sell $200, $300 jeans, but you're not going to sell a pair of 500. Your customer isn't going to expect to sell a pair, to find a pair or pay for a pair of $500 or $600 pants. However, what I did was I looked, where are stallion boots? I don't know if any of you know about stallion boots or Liberty boots, any of these high-end, boot makers whose boot price points are $2,000 and up. If they're selling those, they can sell my pants if they sell apparel, because customers walk in there expecting those kinds of price points, and it's not like a shocker.
All right, we just have our final question. What can the 1 Million Cups community do for you today?
Stay out here. Keep helping. Honestly, even just today, this morning, people I've met, the thing that's great about 1 Million Cups is that for all of these little stages, and when we're in startups, there are all these little micro stages for our companies. There are all kinds of people that you need and help that you need. In my business, I look around this room and I see people who've helped me in many different ways, and I'll continue to reach out to that. So, feedback and just help when we need it. So, thank you.